I think I like this one a little bit better. I was recording my podcast. I had it, I guess you call that landscape or whatever, but it was laying down. I thought it would be better to get like a wider shot, but this seems like it is a lot better. Um, yeah, so thank you guys for listening to my podcast. I really just feel like it's my calling to, help as many people out as I possibly can. And what better way to do that than to, hop on social media and put something positive out there. Um, like I said in my podcast today, like my goal is to build a toolbox. And in building that toolbox, I want to be able to ideally give my listeners the tools necessary to get through any situation. Now, when you're in this situation, it's going to seem like it's impossible. It might not be over in a day, 2 days, 6 months, a year, 5 years. But with the tools that we discuss, it's something that can help keep your head above water. As long as you can tread, you're good. You know, there's times where you might not always be swimming. Sometimes you might not be swimming as fast as you want to be, and then sometimes you're going to be treading. But as long as you're thriving, then it's all good. You know, um, they have a famous saying. I can't remember who said it. I'm sorry. I just read so many different books and articles and stuff, and I hear these good sayings, and then when I'm talking to you guys, it comes to mind, but the author necessarily doesn't come to mind. So I guess that's a hint to me that I need to do a better job on memorizing who said things and where they said them, where I located that quote. But the person who said it stated that if you can't, let me see, if you can't run, walk, or if you can't run, jog, if you can't jog, walk, if you can't walk, crawl, if you can't crawl, like roll or something like that. But basically, like what they were getting at was like always keep momentum. Always keep drive, always keep pushing, and there's always something you can do. One of my famous, sayings that I've said throughout this podcast a million times probably already is do what you can with what you have where you're at. So even though outside forces may be asking more of you, at the end of the day, all you can do is your best. So if you do what you can with what you have where you're at, I mean that's a formula for success. It might not make other people happy, um, but if you're using all the assets, the resources, the tools that you have, you're doing the best that you can do, and you know at the place you're at right now, I mean, you have no other options. What can they say? You know, one of the things that I really wish that was different in my life was I wish I would have taken sports more seriously, because there are um, actually a lot of lessons in sports. Most of the lessons that I derive from life I got from the military, because the Marines does a wonderful job of imparting life knowledge on you. And I joined at a very young age. So I learned a lot about life at a very young age. A lot of lessons that this world would benefit from now under these current circumstances with like politicians and the fear mongering that's going on and stuff like that. Um, the Marines teaches you a lot of good lessons. Um, some of which I'll probably go into with another podcast episode. But sports also has some good lessons. I feel like sports was a precursor to the military, because some of the things they talk about in the military, like doing what you don't want to do, regardless, doing what you have to do regardless of how you feel, like a team environment, team effort, doing what you can with what you have where you're at, you know, being dependable, being on time, a lot of these things and so much more um, are lessons that I should have took more seriously. I took them seriously at the time, but again, um, like I said in my podcast, once I got older and I started, facing the reality of life, I kind of got discouraged and down on myself. Um, and I really don't know why, because I had a ton of great mentors in my life. And starting off with my grandfather, and then going up through school, public school, I had good teachers, good mentors. My family was always there for me. My brothers were always in my corner. Then I went to my military boarding school. I had great mentors there. My flight instructor is one of my, most awesome mentors that I've ever had. Her name is Laura Abraham, um, Miss A. She was awesome. She helped me out through so much. If I could put a camera in that cockpit and just let y'all see what it was like for me trying to get that pilot's license, it was a test. It really was a test because there's a lot of things about flight that kind of unsettled me. Turbulence being the biggest one, and then heights being number two. But I gradually got over, I wouldn't say my fear, but my uneasiness of both. Um, and after a while, it became like riding in the car to me. Um, but yeah, and then when I went to college, my first college, I had a great mentors, um, people that saw something special in me or identified with me, put me under the wing, protected me from some of the BS and pulled me through, So I've always had good mentors, strong mentors. Um, Really, I can't blame them for anything. It's just been me. I've gotten down on myself. I haven't been applying um, these tools in my life as much as I should have. You know, my heart and mind may have been in the wrong places. My heart and mind may have not been in concert with one another and focusing on getting to my goals. So and that's another thing we haven't talked about yet, but having your heart and having your mind congruent, like focusing on the same goal or driving to the same direction. Um, that's very important too. And I know in all my podcasts I say this is a very important aspect of this, or this is a very important because at the end of the day, something that I'm learning is that none of these tools are more important than the other. They're all very important, and they all work in some way in a small part of the bigger picture. And I feel like if you use all of these tools in the right way, you know, it'll definitely help you accomplish your goal. So going back to the toolbox analogy, you know, every solution is not every problem is not a nail, and every solution is not a hammer. And that's the beauty of a toolbox. Sometimes you're gonna need a wrench. Sometimes you're gonna need pliers. Sometimes you're gonna need a screwdriver. And it doesn't just because you have a nail, it doesn't take away the importance of the screwdriver. That's just not the right tool for the job at that moment in time. Um, so all the tools in the toolbox are important. It's just knowing all the tools you have in your toolbox, knowing which tool to use at which time from your toolbox, and then making sure that you're putting new tools in the toolbox constantly. Um, because it's all about growth. Life is about the journey, not the destination. It's about the process of becoming who you want to be in the future, and not the process of acquiring a status or money or wealth or anything like that. Because if you acquire all of that stuff but you haven't changed in the process, what was it all for? That's how I look at it, because I want to be, in 10 years, I want to be drastically different than I am now. I want to have certain things established in my life that are almost like I just do it. Like waking up at 4:30. This week I have done it, let's see, today is Thursday. So out of these 4 days, I've probably done it three, and I want to get consistent. Well, I've probably done it two. Let's be honest. Cause a couple days I've just been so tired, like out of my mind. It's been crazy, but that's something I like to repeat. Day in and day out is waking up early, because the early bird gets the worm, and the one of the qualities that most successful people have in common is that they all wake up early. So if I want to be successful, that's what I have to do. They've set the standard. I just gotta apply by it, and that's what made the Marine Corps so easy. They set a standard. If you accomplish that standard, you're within regs. If you don't, you're not. It's that simple. It's very black and white. There's no gray area like, oh, you kind of, or oh, you missed it by a little. Either you are or you aren't. And sometimes we got to be harder on ourselves than the world is on us. Because I could definitely wake up, right before I have to go to work and get dressed and get ready and then go to work. But how would I create that space for me? How would I create that time for me? Um, Carve out that time throughout my day to, meditate, do my morning routine, do my podcast, create content, stuff like that. So, I mean, it's all about perspective, tools, the toolbox, discipline, consistency, drive, motivation, heart, mind, congruence, all of that good stuff. Just something to think about today. It's Thursday, the week's almost over. Um, Thoughts and prayers go out to the people in Louisiana who are about to face off with this hurricane. Um, and thoughts and prayers to all you out there who are, just grinding, maybe going through hardships and can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm here with you, and I hope that my podcast gives you some relief or some tools that you need in order to make it just a little bit further.